Suck it out. Suck it out. Suck it out. Suck it out.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Thug It Out podcast. I'm your host Farhan, and today I'm with another close friend of mine, Ryan. And today, just this the Thug It Out podcast is basically the where we talk about men's mental health in the space of different things in our lives, whether it's our careers, whether it's our relationships, both personal and professional, whether it's our daily day-to-day lives. We talk about different things and the psychology and sociology associated with the men's mental health crisis in an attempt to deal with it, in an attempt to fix it and to foster a community of supportive young men. And we do this through the eyes of Gen Z, since we're basically the generation coming into adulthood, and we're going to be leading a lot of the new industries in the future. And so it's a pivotal moment in kind of a human society and a pivotal moment in our lives, and so it's important to address it. And so I'd like to, extend my gratitude and thanks to Ryan for choosing to be on this podcast. He's a very busy man, very busy individual, and he's given his time for this. So with that being said, I'd like to say Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak, my friend.
Welcome, assalam and Ramadan Mubarak to you as well, my friend. Never too busy for you.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it. And
Bro.
so basically, starting off with the most important question of this podcast, have you been thugging it out? If so, how have you? If not, what have you done to avoid it?
Yeah, dude, I've been thugging it out. As you know, I'll introduce myself. I'm a second term senior at NYU. So as with you, we're both very close to graduating. One foot in the door in college, one foot on the way out into adulthood. So, as you know, it's very tough wrapping things up. Um, switching majors like mid-college, wrapping up social lives, wrapping up, academic lives. It's all tough. And then balancing, hobbies, etc., if it's even possible. All these things. Um, a lot of compartmentalization going on in order to balance all that. Otherwise, you'll just lose your fucking mind. Um, yeah, balancing that. Also, senioritis. I'm sure you've been going through that as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. And so, yeah, just a little bit. This is a good introduction of yourself. Just like a little bit more of a background, like where are you from? Where have you grown up? How have you how has life been growing up? You know, some like what has made Golem Ryan today? Like what events have made you today?
Well, man, I grew up as with you, I grew up in New York City. I grew up in the Bronx, spent my whole life in the Bronx pretty much up until high school and college. Um, went to high school with you, buddy. It's a very different vibe from the way I grew up. So, just the different phases I've had throughout my life, going to public school in the Bronx, like multiple like elementary schools, middle schools, moving all throughout the Bronx, and then like completely switching it up for high school, like a whole different environment, a whole different type of breed of kids, in Tribeca, very different from the hoodlums I'm used to.
Yeah.
The ability to like code switch and get there, and then further on, like shifting to a even like more extreme version of that, like this whole breed of NYU like kids. I don't have to explain that to you. You know, Once again, it's very different, and all these experiences have shaped me. Being able to navigate different aspects of my personality, whether it be like friends, family, to like people in college, high school, etc. Yeah.
So do you believe this of course to some degree you do believe that this what I'm about to say is true because you agreed to be on this podcast, not just because you're my buddy, but also because you definitely think about some of these things. And do you believe there is a men's mental health crisis? Do you believe that there's definitely uh an issue surrounding like our generation, even those slightly younger than us, the teens, and we're young adults, like in our 20s, early 20s, and we obviously struggle with a lot of these issues that we're going to discuss in this episode. I've struggled with it, you've struggled with it. And I was just wondering, do you think that it's an actual problem? Do you think it's an epidemic? I can't speak for those that are in other countries. Obviously, if I were to really say earnestly that this is kind of a first world problem. A lot of people in other countries aren't going to be experiencing some of these things that we're going to talk about. And of course, it's not um like there's obviously other things. If you were to go back to something like from health class, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Right.
if you remember that, like at the very very base of the pyramid is the basic necessities of survival. Those are your needs that you need: the shelter, food, water. And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't have access to all of those things. And what we're going to be talking about is definitely higher up in the pyramid, definitely not at the base of the pyramid. So, but just from a first world perspective, from us growing up as Generation Z, you do believe that this is an actual problem that needs to be addressed? Have you seen it in your day-to-day life?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, I grew up like struggling with mental health like so much. Like as much as the next guy, probably more, maybe less. I'm not sure. You as well. Definitely an epidemic that affects all of us. I think it's not just, like it's so easy to just blame social media, like, like ruining our like lives, like distorting our realities. But it's so much more than that. It's about like like you said, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It doesn't account for like the 21st century, like, like everything coming at us from all different angles. Like, you know, like from we'll go like top down, like, you and I, we're in college, but like, as the economy gets worse, the college degree itself like loses itself in the vacuum. It becomes essentially worthless. We're competing in the job market against like middle-aged men who are latching onto the jobs that we're so clearly trying to break into. Trying to transverse our identities throughout the whole process. Super difficult, and then like working our way down. Like as a teenager, like you're in high school, you're being told like, hey, you have to pursue like X, Y, Z routes, but you have no idea how that's going to lead. You have no real role models to guide you through that. It's very, very polarized right now. Like the way uh social media and just life is. Like you have like the whole red pill aspect where like you go crazy on this self-improvement arc, this route. Where you're essentially taking another man's advice on like, oh, like you should do these things like, like work out, like, get women, like whatever that entails, like find some hobbies. Like you're listening to this advice, but you don't know like how to fill that void in yourself. Once you get like X, Y, and Z, you're told, oh, like you'll reach, your purpose if you do that, but then you don't have the outlet to discover it yourself, really. Like everything's being forced down your throat to some extent. Um, yeah, and like like I said, it's super easy to blame social media, but I was just, I'm glad you mentioned this. I was just talking to my friend Noah earlier, and yeah, he's a freshman, sophomore. He's now a sophomore at NYU. He's a Korean international student, so like these issues like transcend like us growing up in New York City. Like you could always be like I have it rough, but we were
I mean, you
talking
could
and
always
then
argue that he might even
yeah,
have it tougher. I know the East Asian
yeah,
countries, although
right,
not a stereotype, every stereotype has some like aspect of truth to it. Just based on what I've heard from other international students and stuff, like the academic uh
mm,
environment in those countries are definitely rigorous. It's very tough. Not even in East Asia and South Asia
yeah,
as well. Your whole life is dictated by one exam, and if you don't
right,
do well on that exam, it's over for you pretty much. So I can definitely understand that comes from that
yeah.
aspect of living.
Yeah, yeah, and then this is a kid like this Noah guy. He's one of my closest friends. And then he was talking to me earlier. He was like, "Man, I feel so empty on the inside. Like he's he's doing everything he's supposed to be doing. He found a major that suits him. He was like kind of lost in terms of academics. He couldn't figure that out. Found what he wanted to do. Found his passion. Wanted to follow in his sister's and father's footsteps of getting into the medical field. So he's doing pre-med now. Switch majors. Has been working out consistently. He used to be like 250 pounds plus, lost more than 100 pounds. He's looking great, is in great shape. Found hobbies. We're on the Taekwondo team together. He's doing that. Is, like talking to girls, like is filling that void, like the social aspect. And then he was like, man, I don't know why I still feel so empty. I feel like I have a void in myself. And then that was like perplexing because then it's like, oh, you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. Like what else? Like what else is missing at this point? Maybe religion, who knows? But then I was just like, dude, like we're all young. Like we're too young to fully have all the answers. Like that's another part of the mental health crisis. You're like you're weaponizing therapy to essentially be like, oh, like if you're not okay, you should have your shit together by like this age. And it's always so binary, like right, like you either have the camp of people that like use therapy to completely like dodge accountability, like 100% of the time, like nothing's ever their fault, right? Like oh, why am I so like mentally like cooked? It's just it's over for me. And then you have the other side where it's like oh, Like you're not 25 a millionaire like living in Thailand. Like like you're cooked, right? It's like there's no intermediate, like solution where it's like, hey, you know, it's okay to acknowledge where you are right now. You might not be where you want, but it's important to, find this is what I told Noel, I'll quote myself. I'm not trying to be too narcissistic. It's just I'm not good with coming up with like improvising answers on the spot. So I'm just gonna read what I've told him. I said you'll find answers with time and more responsibilities. For some people, they fill the void with family, work, religion, short-term goals. You just have to find the right combination that works for you. It's just experimentation at the end of the day, like whichever works for you. It's not like one person's formula to success working for everyone, you know. Um, we love doing that in this society, just putting people in boxes and like going like this is the only route, or you're cooked. There's only so much we can do with that.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, I agree with what you said, but I know you said this one size does not fit all for this situations like this. But as a Muslim, don't you believe that you have the most ideal solution, the one size that fits all, pretty much? I mean, look, as a as both as young Muslims, right, as young adults, it's important that we understand like that type part of our identity, because what
Right.
separates us from other young adults in our generation, like, but for example, you brought up the red pill movement, right? It's that, let's just assume there's a lot of good in it, in my opinion. There's a lot of good in a lot of things that you can see, right? But the problem is you go too far in one aspect and you ignore all the other aspects.
Right.
So a big thing about this podcast, at least, is that I kind of categorize health or mental health into like, or health in general, into three-pronged approach. You have physical health, mental health, and spiritual health, right? So a lot of I'd assume that the red pill movement does a lot for physical health, a decent amount for mental health, because it's all about improving your self-esteem and improving how other people see you and how you see yourself. But it completely neglects the spiritual health, which I feel is the most important component,
Interesting.
in my opinion, because
Yeah.
nowadays you can say that the life that we live, especially as young adults, it's a life that's full of vanity, a life
Right.
that's full of fleeting entertainment, because you're not going to be in your 20s forever, and you're not going to be able to do a lot of the things that you're participating in for most of your life, right? So how long will you be doing those things and keeping that void empty? So you said your buddy has a void, that he feels like there is a void. And so I was
Right.
just wondering, does he think that void is something that's missing because of him focusing more on these other aspects? You said like he lost 100 pounds, which is incredible, great progress in terms of that. So that's his physical health. You said socially he's improved, when talking with other people. So he's improved his self-esteem in that regard. So that's his social health. So what about his spiritual health? Has he pinpointed that as kind of his, that's the void that's missing? And if it is, what do you think about helping him with that?
I'm glad you brought that up because that is exactly what we were talking about. This subtext was a conversation we were having about religion. And I do agree with you. This three-pronged approach of, like mastering your physical health, spiritual health, and mental health. Like I agree. Like I've been privileged to say that like I've always had like the spiritual health aspect like covered, like when all my other aspects were like failing in me. Now, like people like there are people that might not have any of those, which like that truly is rock bottom. But like me personally, like I'm privileged to say like that was the one thing that did keep me grounded through all this. Um, yeah, like I do love to preach for spiritual health as well. That is very key. Um, yeah, he was telling me like he's been feeling this void because due to past religious experiences he's had with his religion. And so I was just explaining to him like my perspective as a Muslim, like how we view God, how we view Allah. Um, from just like a theological like differences like between his religion and mine. And the best I can do is just, put those theories out there and like let him guide himself. I believe that's the best way to help someone who's asking, religious questions. What do you think?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. It's like the most important thing personally that I feel a lot of people are turned away from religion is because you're afraid to ask questions. A lot of people don't ask questions. And for the viewers, just so you know, it's Islam is not like Christianity, where you go to Sunday school and you ask them a question and they tell you just, believe in Christ and he'll guide you. The spirit of Christ will guide you, or something like that. In
Right.
Islam, you're encouraged to ask questions. You're encouraged to dive deep in, because there's no point in having faith that's just blind. Obviously there's some aspects of that in every faith tradition, because you can't
Right.
prove it's metaphysical. There are a lot of metaphysical aspects of
Agreed.
faith, and what it means by being metaphysical is that you can't empirically prove it, as in you can't prove it with observations, you can't prove it by the five senses. And that doesn't mean that that doesn't exist or that's not true, because that's just not how metaphysics works. Of course, because of that, a lot of people disregard it entirely. They're uh like, what's the word, they're traumatized from the fact that they can't ask questions, that they can't
Mm,
um seek to understand deeper, seek to understand further. And that's a problem that I feel like Islam addresses pretty well, because you're not coming up with your own interpretation, but you're coming up with your questions that have an answer that you're encouraged to go and ask and encouraged to seek the answer for. And it's
yeah.
not something that you're shunned away from. And
Right.
so, just like to your friend, I would like, of course, you told them, explore, think about these things, look into it. And there's a lot of good, YouTube channels, a lot of good resources online that'll guide you to the right place, to right thinking. But obviously, the most important thing is you attempt to look into these things with a sincere heart. You have to have your heart open to things like that. And obviously, you told me that he is doing good for himself, but the void is something that he needs to fill. And I encourage him to look into these things, because that's something that, if you set a foundation for yourself while you're a young adult, where you're at the prime of your life, when things are going your way, you look the best, you sound the best, you think the best for some people, but you're at the, some would say, like the early prime of your life, where if you set the foundation for something like this, you'll only continue to build, because it's at this point in time where people start to think, you know, I don't know how often you think about death, but in Islam, a big idea, a big theme is that death is guaranteed. That's the only thing in life that's guaranteed. And the point of death being guaranteed is that you don't know when it's coming, but it is coming. So you always have to have that in the back of your head, regardless of what age you are. Obviously, before you hit puberty, things are different, but in Islam, at least after you hit puberty, that's something you have to be conscious of. You could be 15 and your life could end the very next day, and you could never make it to 20, and so on and so forth, with the different ages. And so that's the thing. Once you set the foundation at this point in your life, where honestly people feel invincible, they do a lot of different things, they're exploring. This is what we call it in the West, where you explore your options, you explore different things. Like,
Right.
women love to say they're finding themselves at this point in their lives. And so a lot of that is what gives this idea, this invincibility, that I'm at such a young age, I'm able to live for so long. Like, why do I need to worry about something like that? But it's important you do worry about it. And so, of course, just going back, just I encourage, your buddy to go and look into these things and to understand it, because I honestly feel, as a Muslim, you have to feel that things like this, when your soul is kind of yearning for your creator, you can't disregard that feeling. You have to be accepting of that feeling and understand it. And obviously, there are certain things you can't do anymore if you do accept the faith traditions. But that's just, not everything comes for free, basically. And so you also mentioned that, what's it called, that you're in taekwondo and stuff like that. So I know, as a close friend of yours, I know that you're a big fan of like combat sports, and you're always interested in things like the UFC and boxing. You've always been interested in those things, so much so that I have you nicknamed on my phone as Brown Boy Boxing, because you are Brown Boy Boxing to me. So because of that, I would just like to ask, like, how much of that has shaped you into the person that you are? Why do you like combat sports so much? A lot of people like different things, different sports, but you in particular love combat sports. You've joined the Taekwondo team, you become a part of that. Um, that's I envy you. You like go to competitions, you win tournaments, you have all these different accolades from participating, and you've made a wonderful group of friends, that I can tell from what you post on social media and stuff like that. So I just wanted to ask, like, what has that hobby of yours given you? That's obviously one component of the red pill movement. Have hobbies, but they shouldn't be claiming that as like a an exclusive thing of the red pill. Anyone can have a hobby.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
about
Right.
your combat sports hobby.
Yeah, yeah. Like, dude, like, I started it because growing up, like I said, I had a rough upbringing. I get beat up a lot. Like, let's be real. I got jumped a lot, like where I grew up, and so it just got to a point where my mom was like, "Yo, like, I don't want to have to worry about my son just every night just coming home like with broken glasses and a bloody nose." So, she put me into boxing, put me into the local, like, karate gym back in Westchester Square. Yeah, and so I just grew up with it. It's just always been a part of my identity, really. It's not like something that I like saw on YouTube. It was trending, and I'm like, oh my God, that looks cool. Like these macho dudes. It's just how I grew up. For me, it's an outlet to like really like it hits both of my mental health and like physical health aspects. Like it gives me an outlet to vent my personal issues out. It's like, and no matter how angry I'll be at the end of the day, like I can always take my frustrations out in training. I always feel, a bit like I've taken the edge off, like no matter how chaotic things are outside, like whether it be my academic life, my personal life, I'll get a good like sparring session in, and then I'll be like, okay, this is one aspect I know isn't gonna go away. I'll still consistently be here getting my ass whooped every single Monday or every single Wednesday. Um, yeah. Um,
Okay, and why has it so you said it's because of the way you've grown up that you've chosen combat sports, right? And
yeah.
so just like another thing that I kind of wanted to highlight is, you already said we went to the same university, but for the thing is I kind of go to the auxiliary campus,
Hmm.
the vestigial organ, the one on the side basically kind of, and you've gone on to brighter and bigger things at the main campus. So I just wanted to ask, you know in your 2 years where you were with me, like you weren't really involved in that many clubs and
No.
involved in things like that. Yeah, but the moment you were able to escape that hellhole, I guess, you were able to join parts of like other communities and other things. You made some great friends. While you were here, your friends were pretty much the guys we went to high school with who came with us to college. So that was our friend group for the most part. We weren't really
Right, right.
branching out to other people. So I just want to know what was that transition like? How was it for you to go from people you knew to people you
Hmm.
didn't know and getting involved in clubs and things like that? Has that done good things for you?
Yeah, yeah. To answer this question, it's like the first half of my academic career, we'll call it. I was like as with you, I wasn't pre-med. I was struggling in the trenches with CBE, with BMS. It wasn't fucking fun. I legitimately had no time to devote myself to hobbies or clubs. I just did not have the time. I was locked in. I really made it my goal to try to do the best I could, like academically, like Chem Max or Go Max. Like it is difficult for you engineering students at Tandon. And I would also argue that like just in terms of the social aspect at Tandon is just like you said, it's the vestigial organ, right? Like no offense. Like it's a lot more isolated. It's harder to just get involved with things. Like just even on main campus, they're just like not even club related. They're just way more events. Like you'll walk into Bobst and then they'll just be giving out like colored bagels and like interviewing people. And like it's just there's just so much more diversity. So when I did switch campuses and majors, like it was a bit of I was having a bit of an identity crisis at that time because I was gambling on like when I gambled on that, I didn't have any friends on main campus. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't know anyone in my new major. Like I'm switching majors and campuses, so I was really scared to do that. But there was just so much like support for me on main campus. Once again, I'm really not trying to shit on Tandon. It's just there's just so much more people. It's just a lot easier to make friends. People just talk more, I feel like.
Mhm.
You have the internationals at Tandon, kind of just clump together in like the two distinct two or three friend groups. We all see them in Jasper. Like we know who they are, right? And then it's like what you're gonna come up to like a group of five people and be like, "Yo, hi, like, I'm a sophomore, like I'd love to join your group." Like it's super hard to do that. Whereas like during main campus, it's like just because it's just because it is more diverse and a lot of we have a lot more, I would say, like a wider range of core requirements we have to take just because it's not an engineering college. Like I'm like taking Spanish 4. Like some of these people I met in this class, like I would not definitely would not have met like elsewhere, right? So just like diversity and then just joining clubs that kind of just throwing myself into that pool like forced me to like become a bit more social, I guess. Yeah.
Do you think this socialization aspect? Obviously, I've never seen you at in high school either being an antisocial person. Everyone like you would speak to people. You weren't secluded. You didn't keep yourself isolated from others. So I just wanted to know like obviously you seem like a brighter person now. At Tandon, you seem to be kind of miserable at times, and you had to change your whole trajectory of what you wanted to do. Now discuss with me like that decision. Was it something that was difficult? Like obviously, we're brown, so you got to come into school with one of three career goals and career aspirations that
Right.
don't necessarily exist because we want to do it. Obviously familial pressure, even if the pressure is not really there, you already know
Right.
it's a subconscious thing, like it's a open secret kind of, where like you can do what you want, but you'll be judged for what you do because it's not as economically favorable to do those things. And honestly, we can understand it from a certain aspect because we're both
Yeah.
first generation immigrants. We don't have the um luxury of, I want to use the word luxury, of a lot of these
Right.
liberal arts majors, not to shit on liberal arts majors or anything like that, but
As
uh
you should. You totally should, bro.
but we don't have the luxury to do those things because we still have to establish ourselves in this country for the
Right.
most part. And so I just wanted to ask, like, why did you come into school with that major? Like, why was it pre-med? Was it your decision, or was it something else?
Honestly, a large part of this is, as you know, like just familial pressure, but not even in the sense that like my dad was like, you have to like be a doctor. It's just like my dad always like as a kid, he was always like nurturing me towards that like career path. Like, oh, like your grandpa was like a doctor, like like this is just the line you should fall into. Like, oh, medicine, isn't it so much fun? So like growing up like I'm sure your parents did the same, but give you like a little stethoscope and then like glorify like romanticize certain career options over others. Like growing up, like if if I even had like a picture like on my laptop of like anything stock related, my dad would just shut that shit off, be like, haram, like you can't even be looking at stocks, like Wall Street, like haram, you know, like so it's like stuff like that, or even like weird like brown niches, like for some reason like brown people hate the idea of dentistry. Like they
Yeah,
just
it's
look.
it's, it's kind of weird. Yeah, sometimes, I mean, I haven't heard it that often in my circles at least, but
Oh,
maybe
well,
it's
maybe it is just for my parents, but my parents were like, nah, you can't. Like there were just even certain like subcategories within medicine that it's just looked down upon. So, I thought like even in high school, I assumed like, oh, I guess this is just what it is for me. I guess I'll enjoy doing it. Like I don't know. I'm not even sure what engineering is. Like what are the other options? And in high school, I just had pretty bad experiences with computer science. It just at the time it didn't resonate with me. So I was like I was like, whatever. Like I guess this is just my destiny. I guess I'll do pre-med. Um, yeah. So it was like one of those things I entered without, the foresight, I guess, of what it really means to be in the medical field. And then, 2 years down the line, well, like 1 year in, the first year is just like, prerequisite like engineering classes and like like the intro to bio, intro to chem, that sort of stuff. So even that's still manageable. You don't get to the nitty gritty. Once you get to the weeder classes, of course, then you're actually contemplating like your decisions, like, oh, like fuck, like this is the reality. Like, what am I doing? Do I actually enjoy this? And then you get closer to your third year when it's like, oh, like have to start prepping for the MCATs, have to start like applying for research positions, and then you have to keep refining your story. Obviously, when you're prepping for interviews, you need to build this image of yourself where you're like, you know, you portraying your excitement and enthusiasm to like work in the medical field. And then that for me, like visualizing that, I just couldn't see myself, like being a doctor, even being a PA, being a nurse, like whatever the lower rung is, like whatever's like acceptable, even like doing like medical research. I just found myself like going, oh, like this is actually like really not what I want to do. It's just I haven't thought of it enough because growing up it was like so romanticized, right? Then, as you do, I'm blessed to have parents over time, like they've gotten more um understanding, right? So I was able to have conversations with them, which I feel like for the most part I wasn't able to, like in high school, even like, we both went to Stuyvesant High School, right? Like I didn't even want that for myself. I actually wanted to go to Bronx Science. Well, surprising, but like glad it turned out the way it did. Those kids are kind of goofy. But just because, like, from where I'm from, like, a lot of my friends did just end up going to Bronx Science. So even the transition to style, like, I went in, like, not having any friends. And there was, like, maybe, like, 3 or 4 kids that I knew from the Bronx. So I've always kind of not resented my parents for that, but kind of like I felt like I just never had a say because I just showed them at SHSAT scores and they were like, yeah, you have to do stat. Like it's like the only option. So, I just had never had that convo with my parents where I was just miserable in high school, like just the commute back and forth. And then I also did debate and wrestling in high school. So I'd just be getting home around 8, 9 p.m., wake up at 6 a.m. You know how rigorous the classes are. After homework, you don't really have much time to yourself at all, right? So it was just 2.5 to 3 miserable years of that. Then finally, after high school, I had that convo with my parents where I was like, did not really enjoy high school at all. And they were like taken aback. They didn't even know how I was feeling. So it's like this whole time I could have just communicated with them, maybe asked for a transfer out. Who knows? Maybe I would have said, I don't know. Hindsight's, 2020. But like being able to have conversations with my parents, I feel like has helped me just make my like future life decisions a bit better. Because even with this whole pre-med thing, I was able to have a convo with them. Some kids are not even able to. Like they'll be like 3 years into college and like not knowing like, and their parents will have no clue like if they're enjoying like what the fuck they're doing, right? So I had that convo. My parents were like, okay, clearly like this is not what you want. Don't do it. Switch up. And I was like, oh, like that convo went a lot easier. I thought there was gonna be a lot more shouting. Thought there was gonna be a lot of like like you're disappointing like your grandparents like like you know how it is, bro. Like let's be real. So it was like surprisingly like none of that, which yeah, I think touches upon another point. I feel like especially for Farhan, like the demographic of people watching your channel, right? Like, we're kind of in the same circle of, like immigrants with like generational trauma to where we feel like we can't talk to our parents about stuff. That's definitely like a cap. Like it's setting like um a limit on our mental health because there's only so much you can do by yourself. Like you feel lost, who are you gonna reach out to? Like, your parents are like your like at the end of the day, like they're your only support until you have like kids and you're married. Like who else do you have besides your parents, right? Like friends maybe, but it's like at the end of the day, if you don't feel fully comfortable reaching out to your parents, it's like you're just kind of I don't want to be dramatic, but yeah, like I felt stunted mentally until I was able to open up to my parents.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I'm happy you brought that up because a lot of people, myself included, I haven't like broken past that barrier yet. And honestly, I don't think I ever will break
Mm.
past that barrier. I think obviously your parents have done a great thing being able to be spoken to, being open about being spoken to, and like understanding who you are and what you want to do. A lot of the times it's because they just don't understand what it means. Again, like, first world versus third world problems. For them, it's making sure there's food at the table, at the dinner table, and paying rent. Um, you know, for them, it's not about how you feel, it's what you do. And it's not about the feelings don't matter to them because you have to suppress them and you have to take care of the things that you need to take care of because it's just basically a duty. And
Right,
so
right, right.
yeah, so on one hand, you can't blame them, and on the other hand, spending so much time here in this country, it's not just our job to learn. Just because we're students and their studying days are far behind them, doesn't mean that not everyone is learning, right? So just like how you and I have to learn about the different things we got to learn about in school, they also have to learn about the social customs, the social norms, especially in a country like this. Maybe back home, maybe in BD, you don't worry about these things, right? You don't really communicate with your kids
Mm.
because they understand that things need to be done. But we grew up here, we have different kind of mental needs, the way that it's not the same as someone from BD growing up in BD. Maybe they could get away with not speaking to their kids about things
Mm.
like this, but us here, we need it. And honestly, it's just going back to be the change you want to see in your community,
Right,
right? So we're gonna
right.
be this goes back to the idea of we're the next generation, right? We're gonna be the next group of moms and dads, right? And so us understanding these things and us internalizing these things will make it so much easier for our kids growing up. And so that's another part of this podcast, like why I want to kind of educate people in our generation that what we're going through is actually important because you don't understand the things that can shape people growing up. And like no kid, like sometimes I wake up and realize, wow, this thing did happen to me back in the day. Because you're a kid, you don't what do you think about things that happened in your past, in your memories and stuff like that? Sometimes you're just thinking, oh, things just happened, but then you look back on it and you just start noticing like patterns and stuff like that, and you're just thinking like, wow, this happened to me, this affected me, and like you just learn and you grow from that. And so like that's an important aspect that like I'm happy you touched on that because your parents were so comfortable with you coming to them and you were comfortable actually going to them and speaking to them, you know, helped you navigate that radical shift in your life. And so like that's a, you know, good way to segue into our next section. So I just wanted to you know, go back to the thing you said about being weeded out. And that's a term
Mm.
in college that's used especially in rigorous majors such as pre-med and engineering and things like that. Weed out basically means, for those of who don't know, classes that if you don't do well in, it's a premonition of things to come. Basically, these are the classes that will build upon it's the foundations that advanced classes will build upon. And if you struggle in classes like this, then you probably won't cut out for the more advanced things. Obviously, it's not a case that is familiar to everybody. Some people excel when they get faced with a challenge, but the general consensus is the weed out classes just weed out people who aren't built for it, basically. And so I just wanted to ask, you know, both of us, just not to like toot our own horn, basically, but you know, we were above average in terms of academics. Like we got to the places we got the scholarships that we got because of how good we were at school. And it's not like a flex or anything like that. We were, of course, put through immense, you know, pressures to get to those points. Some of us crumbled, some of us, like me and you, were shaped into, you know, proverbial diamonds, I guess. You know, we went to probably the best specialized high school in New York City, and then we went to pretty good universities for reduced costs and scholarships and merit-based things. And so I just wanted to ask you, like, obviously this has affected me, you know, in
Mm.
a lot of ways, the weed out. Like,
Yeah.
how do you like being so academically excellent for most of your life, right? And then getting hit with the reality of being weeded out. Because if you don't, like, you know, if people don't know that you switched your major to computer science, correct?
Right.
From pre-med. Yeah. So in essence, you basically got weeded out, right? So how do you deal
Yeah.
with it? Like, how do you feel? Like, do you think you're a failure? Is the mindset that you're a failure? Is the mindset that it just didn't work out? You know, you can be the most brilliant person, but things just don't work out. It doesn't work out. So I just want to know how you handle it and how would you advise someone else to handle it? Because going from being excellent to being not good enough is a very hard thing to swallow.
Right. Right. So yeah, like I mean, growing up like in the Bronx, like the elementary schools, the middle schools I went to, were not filled with the most academically inclined folk, right? This is just the reality. So, you know, from there I just went just by like doing your homework and shit, like just showing up to class, that's already like, you know, making you seem like a bit of a savant, right? Um, so I was used to being in that position of like, oh, like I felt so much like intellectual superiority over kids as a kid, and then my reality was shattered once I got to high school. So me personally, I've already had that experience, like the humbling of like going to a high school with like kids from such a different academic background, like just actual like geniuses, you know, like kids who don't even need to study to get straight A's. They have like, you know, perfect recall, or kids who, you know, they just have the discipline that I simply do not. So I from a young age, I was used to being humbled, like knowing the extent of my abilities. Um, I would like to think of myself as, you know, like I'm able to study for things and I'm able to pass. I'm able to understand topics. I'm able to catch on well. I don't think I'm brilliant by any means, but that was just the mindset that I've carried into college, right? Like just to preface that, like the idea of getting weeded up, I was passing all my classes in pre-med with like B's. Like I wasn't failing any of them. I wasn't getting D's, C's, B's, and A's, right? It wasn't like I was in Orgo, like failing completely, horribly. And then I like just could not could not get to that level. I view weeding out in two ways. You could just get weeded out academically, straight up. Like that could happen to you. Like you just realize you're not smart enough for something, or you just do not have the intellect to do it. That's okay too. Or the other kind where it's like you realize that you're getting weeded out in terms of passion for the subject. There are certain classes that will just by sheer rigor of workload and just by how in-depth the curriculum is, you will realize the reality of whichever field you're trying to go into. You know, for different majors is different things. Like for computer science, is certainly like you have your like data structures classes, your basic algorithms classes, like the higher level classes. Those are also weed out classes because they get closer to the to the crux of what you will be doing in the working world to some extent, right? Not like all cases are the same. But yeah, I did get weeded out in terms of passion. I realized, oh, I am able to keep up with it. If I put my mind to it, I could. But at the same time, I just like don't like I'll be staring at my textbook for like 1 hour and then I'm like, I've actually got nowhere with this because my mind is just not into it. Right? There's only so much you can do with that. Like there's only so much passion can take you. And I was explaining this to my brother earlier. For context, my brother is going to college next year. Like he's a senior in high school. So I was trying to get him to explore like these different fields. Like, hey, like rhythm, like what do you want to do with your life? Like which career path do you want to take? And he's like, as most high schoolers are, he's like, I don't know, I don't really care. I'm like, dude, like you can have passion for something and you can have discipline. Like these are two things that you both need. You can't like I mean, obviously there are anomalies, but like you can't just outwork, you know, passion for something with discipline, and you can't use your passion to like cram like for a week straight and then outdo people with discipline for a certain field. At the fundamental core, like you need both to succeed in like the harder like academic fields like engineering, right? Like any like most things STEM related. Obviously, there will be like nuances and levels of like difficulty. Pre-med certainly being one of the really hard ones. But you could be a straight A student. You could have the ability to pass all your classes, but at some point, like some kid who has that same ability as you and who actually cares and wants to make a difference like is just gonna just like slowly but surely just gap you and then you realize like before it's too late like oh fuck you're burnt out and you can't even get the grades you used to so um you have to deal with being weeded out as just a part of life as with anything like you'll get weeded out in other aspects maybe your social life as well like you'll get weeded out of a friend circle and that's okay like over time like people change interests change life priorities change and if you don't align you will get weeded out even at work, like you're working really hard at a position, but then some smooth talking guy just gets that promotion over you. You've gotten weeded out. What are you gonna do now? You know, like we need to just accept that as an inevitability in every aspect of life, not just like straight academics. And then like once you realize that this is an inevitability, you've come to terms with it, then you can actually move forward on the next step. Some people can't deal with the mental pressure of being weeded out. They think it's like it is their identity. Like fuck, I couldn't make it. Like what am I gonna do now? I'm not good at anything else. If that's the mindset you have, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas if you go into college or even exit college with the mindset of, oh shit, like this could happen to me, this could happen to anyone that doesn't define who I am, then like you'll work your way back up to wherever you are meant to be.
Mhm. So you said a lot of great things there. Honestly, the most important thing for me, at least that you said, was that it's an inevitability of life. So how much of this of knowing that things are gonna go that way and not knowing like not trying to fight against what is happening is part of growing up as well, is because you have to know that there's some things that just it's part of life and it's part of growing up, and becoming an adult is knowing these things, identifying these things, and figuring out the best way to deal with these things, either by yourself or with the help of others, especially if you have a good support network. And so you have got, like, let's just say you take no shame in being classes being weeded out. So you've gotten weeded out, and you mentioned earlier that you didn't particularly enjoy computer science in high school. It was something that obviously you've spoken about it, and I know partly why didn't enjoy the curriculum or the major itself, or like the topic itself in high school. But like what influenced this change of heart? Well, why would you go
Sure.
from something,
Mm,
was it just because pre-med is something you hated more? Is like choosing the best of two evils? Was it
mm.
monetary? Was it family related? Was it obviously I don't think it's a career prospects, because everybody knows what's happening with computer science, right? You goofball. But
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
what was the change of heart? What caused it? And maybe other people can benefit from understanding this. Like, why make that decision? Was it just,
Mm.
was it maturity, knowing that something I didn't like in high school, just, maybe I didn't like it because I didn't like it for multiple different reasons, not because I wasn't good at it, not because I wasn't passionate about it. It just left a bad taste in my mouth for the time being. And honestly, I would consider that a sign of maturity, being able to understand that it's a temporary thing, a temporary feeling, and you're just looking out for yourself. So yeah, what caused this change of heart?
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that. In high school, I thought I got weeded out of computer science. Like I had such a bad experience with just high school computer science that I was like, okay, clearly this is not going to be it for me at all. I didn't even consider it going into college. Didn't even care about programming. Didn't even care. But, you know, this is where I feel like it's important to be open-minded, right? Like the first computer science class I took, in college, it was like ironically part of the pre-med curriculum, like the engineering curriculum core class. We had to take computer science. You were in my
Mhm.
class, right? Um, it was just a point. I showed up to class and then we were doing one of the labs, and then I was like, it just clicked to me, like clicked for me, and I'm like, wait, like I feel like the analytical part of my mind, like the part of my mind that enjoys problem solving, really resonates with that aspect of computer science. Like at the end of the day, I see myself being able to sit on a chair and just, problem solve, like create out of the box solutions for like these um like these mathematical scenarios, which is essentially what computer science is. At the end of the day, it's just a bunch of zeros and ones. Like, not to be reductionist, but yeah, like being able to organize these zeros and ones into a more complex, elaborate, intricate system. That's what kind of drew me towards computer science. Definitely not the career prospects, like as you know. Um, yeah and the humility to be like, okay, that experience I had in high school, that should not dictate how the rest of my life should go. That being said, I could still end up to be a massive failure. Like as you've like seen all the homeless memes, like for computer science majors, right? Could still happen to me. Like I'm working for a startup right now. We might completely tank. I don't know, right? I'm not saying that I'm not confident in my people, but you know, embracing all possibilities, I think really helps you move forward, right? Just it's a cycle. Like you start with the open-mindedness to help you, find what you want to do in life. And then with that, like once you get to that next stage, you have to accept the possibility of, hey, like it might not work out. It didn't work out for me in high school. What makes me think it's going to work out for me in college or for a job? I didn't know. But I was like, I'm just going to give a stab at this anyways. I could have chosen another major. Could have gone into, I don't know, fucking nursing, just stayed in pre-med, became a nurse, right? I'm sure I could have done that, right? Like the money's not bad either in nursing. Like I'm just giving you an example, right? Like there are so many things you could do just motivated by money, but I feel like for me, I needed to just satisfy that itch of like just who I am as a person. So I think a huge part of our personality does dictate like where we will end up with our career prospects. And we should embrace that open-mindedness to help us get to that point.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with the family, your family that you come from, which is as you described, has been a big part of influencing who you are and the decisions you make. And thankfully, like for your sake, you have more progressive parents when it comes to things like careers and things like that. And a lot of people don't have that same
Yeah.
luxury.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they might be stuck in something and that they don't really want to do, and that of course breaks down families, breaks down relationships, familial bonds, things like that.
Mm.
And those, especially in our culture, especially not just as a cultural thing, an Islamic thing as well. Family is paramount. It's the most important thing. You have to keep your ties of kinship. Of course, in extreme circumstances, things can change, but for the most part, it's family first. Family is the one that you're, gonna be with for a majority of your life, and and family won't be switching up on you, for the most part at least. And so yeah, I just wanted to bring up again what you were saying, like you are a elder brother to
Mm.
two younger siblings, so you
Mm.
have a big responsibility in the household when it comes to that. And for
Right.
those that don't know, for the viewers, like just in a South Asian family dynamic and in Islamic family dynamic as well, the oldest son, the eldest son is a big responsibility too. It's you kind of take the values from your father, imparted onto your younger siblings, and you're kind of a liaison between the your parents and your younger siblings. And it's not something that's exclusive to the like brown families. Everyone knows that the middle child is the baby, and the baby child or the youngest child is even more of a baby. You take the brunt of everything, whether
Mm.
it's you're the test dummy. Whatever parenting failures that they've you know, been through, that you've been through, that they've caused, they've learned from it, especially, in the best case scenario. And then, they're much easier on the younger siblings. So you were talking about how through your life experiences, you've explained to your younger brother, like, hey, I was in your situation once where I just, I go to college because everyone goes to college that I know. My parents told me to go to college. And so, if my goal is to just go to college, I'll just go to college. Like, I don't know what I want to do, but I'll just go and maybe figure it out on the way. And you're telling your brother, hey, you should probably figure this out, do your research before you actually go somewhere, because that'll impact a lot of, how life goes from there, that point onwards. So, how much of that, like being an elder brother, what has that change in your life? Like how has that influenced you? You obviously, now you're a young adult as an older brother, so you have more of a nuanced view of the world. It's no longer just, the older brother in high school is telling his younger brothers to, or younger siblings, to do their homework or wake up or something like that, or stop playing video games. It's more like now you're telling them, hey, I'm the first person in my family to go to college, so I know this process. Our parents just don't know the process. We're first generation immigrants, right? So now you know the process, and you're telling them, you're giving the advice. So how much of that has, impacted you and improved your mentality, increased your maturity, and, molded you into the person you are today?
Yeah, I've certainly like had a lot of growing up to do. Um, since I've gone to college, right? Like you said, like and when I was in high school. For context, my brother's 4 years younger than me. So when I was in high school, he was in middle school. Not much you can give advice to like a little kid, right? Unlike when he's running around, right? Um, but like, towards the end of my college, he's about to enter like this world of like adulthood. And um as I was guiding him through like the college application process, that's when I realized like fuck. Like, I need to hold myself to a higher standard. Like because everything I do like impacts like it just trickles down to like my little brother and my little sister. Like whichever route I take, I need to, hold myself to a higher standard. Like I can't fuck this up, or otherwise he's just gonna look at me as the only role model he can look up to, right? He can't look up to our parents, right? Well, like you said, first generation college, right? He has to look up to me, and if he sees that like I fucked it up, or like, I'm in a place where I can't give him sound advice, like the worst thing I'd want to do is to be one of those siblings that are like, hey, don't do what I did, or like don't be a fuck up like me. It's like that's really the only advice you can impart as an older sibling. Like, no way, I refuse to accept that, right? So, guiding him through the process, guiding him through like FAFSAs, like stuff that our parents don't even consider when picking a college. Like for me, it was never a conversation with my parents. It was like, oh, like they were like, you're gonna apply to NYU, Cornell, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Like with him, I was able to have that sit down with him. Like I was able to have that like conversation with my parents as well, where we're like, hey, Rhythm, what do you want to do? Like, what kind of college life do you want? What kind of campus do you want? Do you want a dorm? Like I feel like that's a big question that doesn't even come up in a lot of brown households. A lot of parents just want to keep their kids at home, right? And it's just a struggle where the kids have to like the ones that resent their home are like have to come up with the excuses to go really far for college. They end up in a place they don't even want to be just because they look at it as an outlet to escape. But that's the I'm getting off topic. The point is like even having these conversations with the younger siblings, like what do you want to do? It gives them so much more uh options than even I had, right? Like I want my brother to have the best college experience he can. And as a test dummy myself, right? Like you know, um I can't fuck that up for him, right? So yeah, I think that's also shaped me. And then seeing my little sister grow up, like I have to like make sure like I'm the best role model for her that I can possibly be, right? She's that age. She's 10 years younger than me, so she's gonna turn 12 soon, you know, about to enter high school in like 2, 3 years, right? That's that's also super humbling for me. My little baby sister, right? Like going to high school. So by the time she gets there, I need to make sure like I'm fully set up to where she can be like, oh, like my big brother's like an adult. He's got it figured out. Like our parents were able to, like parent like a success, right? Because oftentimes what happens is, older sibling fucks it up, then there's no incentive for like the younger siblings to even like do because they see their parents as like a failure in a way. which is sad, but it is kind of true. They're like, oh, like this method of parenting clearly didn't work for my older sibling. He went to college. Is it like ending up with some dead end like job making 30K a year? Where's the incentive for me to do anything different? I'm just gonna end up like that, right? So these thoughts have definitely shaped like my mindset my senior year of college as well, where I just have to hold myself to a higher standard. And I feel like in a way that pressure isn't the worst. Like that's not I feel like that's helping me stay grounded as I'm navigating graduation. Instead of having senior eds, instead of just slacking off, instead of going like, oh fuck, let me just barely pass my classes while I just, sleep around and do nothing like at home. I'm up thinking like, hey, I gotta make sure I set a good example for the youngins.
Yeah, and going back to our like little description you gave about the red pill community, a big kind of motif of this community is that they're older brothers, kind of, for a lot of confused young men. The reason they look up to them, it's not necessarily just because of the advice, because that advice isn't unique. It's not special. Go to the gym, take care of yourself, what's it called? Focus on how you talk with others, improve your self-esteem, do all these are, relatively
Cookie cutter, yeah.
universal, yeah, relatively universal things that you would hear from anybody. The thing is that a lot of the time, the vulnerable communities of people who do subscribe to this mindset, this red pill like ideologies, those who are don't have that direction. They don't have an elder sibling who showed them the way, or they didn't have a father figure who imparted onto them if they're an only child. So, you basically highlighted the importance of one, family, and two, good examples within a family. Not necessarily like some people don't have fathers, right? And that doesn't mean that they'll be raised differently.
Right.
All you need is a father figure, and so like that's a very important part of sociology and psychology that really interests me, especially with the dynamics of a
Mm,
family household.
right.
We see in our society now, at least, that the transition from it used to be a traditional family, now then it became a nuclear family, and now it's single parent households are very, very, prominent, very, very common. And so we've seen that shift in those things for a bunch of other, reasons that I hope to eventually get into conversation with some other people about, like, experts in the field in this
Mm,
sociology. But basically, just the gist of it is that the importance of family and older sibling or a father figure, somebody who can fill in that role, is extremely important, especially for young men and for young women as well. Like we can see, so there's memes about, fatherless activity that we don't need to get into, but you understand that the having that figure in your life is super important, is super valuable. And so you obviously, it seems like you understand that very, very well, especially at this point in your life. And so you understand that and you've internalized that you want to do better and be better for your siblings because they look up to you at the end of the day, regardless of what you think about them. You think that they're not caring about stuff. It's just the thing is, children see things, children know things, children understand things. They might not be the best at articulating it because, limited vocabulary at their age, but they definitely see you. They definitely see your progress. They see what you're doing, and what they can understand from that at that point in time will shape them. So it's important that we do these things. I'm an elder brother myself as well, and so I
mm,
gotta consider those things as well. And so that's really important. So I just wanted to end off this like family aspect of it with how much of it has impacted your kind of spiritual journey. Obviously we come from practicing Muslim families,
mm,
alhamdulillah.
mm,
We're not in a situation where we're cultural Muslims for the most part. I know
yeah.
a lot of people who are, and for me personally, I feel terrible about that, just being cultural, because you're not going to be passing it on to the next generation. It's not going to be a legacy. The legacy ends with you, kind of, if you're a cultural Muslim, because you don't in accept or believe in those things, and you don't incorporate it into day-to-day life. It's going to fade away eventually, because let's be honest, there's a lot of alluring things about a life where you don't have to worry about waking up for Fajr, or you don't have to worry about doing wudu, or you don't have to worry about avoiding certain foods and avoiding certain people, things like that. And so I just wanted to ask, like, how has that impacted you? You're a practicing family. It's the month of Ramadan.
Mm,
We've been able to make this far. Allah bless us with the ability to get to another Ramadan, and may He bless us to get to more Ramadans, inshallah. And so, what has that influenced how you go about life and how you've been shaped in your spiritual journey from maybe being not as devout to being more and more progressively more and more devout? And do you see the things that Islam kind of you know uh advocates for and advocates against as a young adult? Do you see those things as like potential reasons of its validity and that it's pretty much like God looking out for you? It makes sense why these things exist. And
Yeah.
we're at a point in our lives where a lot of these things start applying to us because we're
Yeah.
college age students. So I just, so how do you feel about those things?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, tying back the previous topic of family, like into religion as well. Um, Holding myself to a higher standard means like I have to make sure I'm the best Muslim I can possibly be, to set a good example for my brother and sister. For context, my brother is going to be a Hafiz soon, inshallah. 28 paras memorized, two more to go. Inshallah, by the end of high school, he should be there. And this is a journey he's been on since middle school, right? My sister, like, she's in private Islamic school. She's already one bara in, alhamdulillah. Like, yeah, and like she um tried her best to observe like most of the month so far. Like as a little 12-year-old, like she's trying her best to fast like every day. So I think these things, just seeing how devout my family is, um, I can't be the one that like strays away, because then my little sister's gonna look at that and be like, why is Big Brother, like why is Paya like not doing this, right? Like like because they respect me so much, I also need to make sure like it's just a cycle, right? She sees me doing my thing, practicing being a Muslim. And I think there's beauty in struggling to be a Muslim in the Western society we're in, right? Like it's a lot easier if you're like living in Saudi Arabia where it's just the norm. Like all the cultural aspects of being Islam is just embedded into their culture. So it's a lot easier, being a practicing Muslim when, you don't have to ask like, hey, does this thing have pork in it? Or you don't, like, I mean, obviously you still have to lower your gaze, but like it's a lot easier, right? If all the women are wearing hijabs, you don't have to worry about a lot of things. Like you're not worrying about like just the degeneracies that come with the West. It's a lot easier. Like, and it's, you know, testing your faith that way by living in the West as we do, certainly helps improve my iman as well, right? Because I know I'm being challenged by things for a reason, right? Like it's for a reason. And then my siblings seeing me, like, being able to, hopefully successfully pass the trials and tribulations of this dunya, you know, in college, right? Let's be real, we're not at the most like conservative university, NYU, surrounded by degeneracy everywhere I look. It's pretty much very difficult to avoid, especially in the month of Ramadan. But we do it with no complaints. And my siblings see that, my sister sees that, my brother sees that, my parents definitely see that because, sorry, I'm so transparent, like with all of them about everything that happens like to me on an everyday basis. So they see that, and it's just a positive feedback loop, right? I'm inspired by my parents' like devotion to Islam. Um, I remember my dad just like the other day, like I get like a five text message chain where he's just sending me like ticket after ticket after ticket. He's like, "Yo, like Ryan, like pay these off ASAP." And I'm looking at it, and they're all just bus lane violation, bus lane violation, bus lane violation, like four or five in a row, like $200 off the cuff. And I called him. I'm like, "Why are you getting this same violation in the same spot over and like what is wrong with you?" And he's like Ryan, that's the spot where I have to park, for prayer at the 96th Street Mosque, right? The 97th Street Mosque. Like, and I'll do it, I'll keep doing it. Like, I'm not gonna like not park my car and then not pray. And so like just seeing that, seeing my father's like devotion to religion, despite like the consequences, like, could he have spent a little bit more time, found a nice parking spot? Could he have just been like, oh, there's no parking today, I guess I'll just go home and pray, right? Like these are things where he was like around like, I don't care. Like it's the cost of being a Muslim in America, right? So like seeing that stuff inspires me too, because then I apply it to my own life. We're in like a like degenerate like university, like dorming essentially is degenerate. You're surrounded by like degeneracy, like on all four sides, right? Like social, wherever you look, like in person, social media, super degenerate. And seeing that, I'm like, my parents like don't conform, so I don't have to either, right?
Mm. Yeah, and so that's really important. I really like that example you brought up that actually does highlight really well what, some things you just have to give up for the sake of God. And so like that's a wonderful example you've given. And so, moving on to just like just segueing onto that, how about your like personal spiritual journey? Like I know when we first spoke about, things like that in our freshman year, both of us weren't as, religious, but growing up, you said your parents were um you're a big influence in your life, but when you dorm, you're away from them, right? Obviously, you do your best to take those principles and those ideas with you, but sometimes it's difficult, especially if you don't surround yourself with
Right.
yeah, when you don't surround yourself with other Muslims. So, just like judging from your, friend groups and stuff like that, yeah, at Tandon you had us,
Right.
holding ourselves accountable to do
Yeah.
things. It's much
Yeah.
easier to do things when you hold each other accountable. But then
Yeah.
when you're at main campus, you shift it over to, other groups of people. And I don't know if they're Muslim or not, but how is that like if you're the one responsible for holding yourself accountable. You don't have friends who are there to tell you like, hey, let's go pray or something like that. And so I was just wondering, how do you navigate that? And for other people who do that, who have maybe slightly weaker iman, how do they navigate that, and how have you navigated that? They can probably learn from that experience.
Right. So yeah, I certainly do have less Muslim friends than I would if I was at 10 surrounded by you guys, right? That being said, I do have a few Muslim friends on my campus, right? Like one of my closest friends now, this Singaporean international student came for a semester, brought last semester. Now he's doing an internship in the city. I like spend every other day hanging out with him outside of class. He's a Muslim. Like just like small acts like that. Like I feel like at the end of the day, like there is no um there's no sugarcoating this. You have to surround yourself with people of like the same faith as you if you want to succeed spiritually. Like it cannot be a one man show like the whole time. Like that is essentially impossible, right? Like you can try your hardest, but like you will find yourself slipping a lot more if you had like friends who are like you know with you on that journey. That being said, yeah, like holding myself accountable, like that's just something that like you have to do. Like it's there's no there's no like wiggle room. Like this should not be a conversation. Like it's just something you have to do, like out of obligation, if you are to maintain the spiritual health aspect of your life, right? I'm sorry, I don't have like a better answer for you. It's just something you must do.
Yeah. I
There
mean,
are
that
some
makes
things in
sense.
life you have to do, right? You have to wake up, you have to eat, you have to pay taxes, you will die, and then you have to maintain, your obligation to your religion if you want to succeed. Like obviously, like you can do things to make that path easier for you, but at the end of the day, there's no substitute for that.
Yeah. That's a pretty good answer, and just we're just gonna be moving on to this is like a good like en- encapsulation of spiritual health, especially where you're concerning you, and the community that you're surrounded by, the environment that you're surrounded with, and it's a good example of how others can deal with these things as well. And so, like from there, we're just gonna be moving on to like the final segment, which would just be a little bit of a interpersonal relationships, and then finally into the last aspect of career, like things like your own personal projects and stuff like that, things
Mm.
that you're looking forward to, and just general advice. And so with that, we'll be moving on to the next section. And so with that, I just wanted to ask about well, let me at least first set the premise for basically the question I want to ask. We've always given Islam its plaudits. As Muslims, we completely believe in it, and we, submit ourselves to all its obligations and things like that, and all its beliefs and obligations. And so, we praise it. We accept that there's a lot of great things it has to say, and obviously, this is not a problem about Islam, but it's a problem about the community that we find ourselves in. And a big problem with that is we're in our young adult stage, and a lot of us, a lot of young Muslim men face. I mean, it's not even honestly, it's not even a Muslim men problem. I think it's a young male problem in general, and it's another reason why the red pill movement is caught on. like wildfire in the community of young men because there's a loneliness epidemic, and it's really unfortunate, and it's obviously exists, it's just that guys can't find people to be with, or they just think that they're not good enough to be with someone else, or they don't look good enough, or they're not just like the meme, all these girls want Duke Dennis, like that's the meme, man. And so like although it's a joke, some people genuinely believe that, and they think they have no chance because of that. And thankfully we have Dr. Valentine right here, Mr. Romance. You've been with somebody for the past 4 years, hopefully many more to come. And so I just wanted to ask, like, how have you navigated it? And like, do you believe the loneliness epidemic is a real thing? And how have you navigated that, and what have you done? And obviously, as a Muslim, you wanna make this thing,
Halal.
a lifelong thing, inshallah. And so I just wanted to ask, like, what is your, and like, do you believe it's a problem in our communities? It's either, getting married is super difficult. And so for us, it's not because of, what Islam says about how to get married. It's just because our culture and, the many requirements, unfortunately, that are placed, you gotta make a certain amount. You gotta, be a certain, profession. And you got to be, a bunch of different things. You got to check off X, Y, and Z. And this discourages a lot of people because by the time they do get somewhere where they want to make it halal and have a long-term relationship, they've already gone through so many things. We don't need to get into specifics, but people fall into a lot of situations because of that. And so I just wanted to ask for those, who are questioning, who are confused. How have you navigated that, and how's that worked with your family and things like that?
Man, that's a loaded question, right? Like, first of all, yeah, there definitely is a loneliness epidemic for males. You know, whether you're Muslim or not. Specifically, like speaking, like for the Muslim crowd, like you said, a lot of cultural barriers. Preventing us from getting married, which that is not how it used to be back in the day. Like if you look at the history of Islam, you're encouraged to get married young. You're encouraged to get married young and then figure things out with your spouse as you build your way towards like establishing a family. Um Now it's kind of flipped, right? Like culturally, like you said, you're expected to have like a six-figure job. You're expected to have, you know, figured everything out and then be pre-selected, for your partner, when that should not be the case. Multiple hadiths like asserting that like, Allah will give you the wealth as soon as, you know, you put your iman into Allah, get married young, and then you'll figure it out. Like that's how it should be. That's what I believe in as well, right? Um, I'm not an advocate for like, having only focusing on your career, like completely neglecting the social life aspect of your life until you're like 28, you realize you don't know how to talk to girls, or vice versa. Like, you're a you're a Muslim girl, trying to navigate this uh male-oriented society for the most part, and you don't know what to expect out of a future spouse, right? Like you end up, talking to a guy for his hand in marriage. You're not sure what the norms are, like what the customs are, like is he treating me fairly? Like is he being toxic? You don't know because these are conversations you couldn't have with your parents. Like how are you gonna talk to your parents about that sort of stuff, right? Like there's obviously that barrier as well. Um so yeah, like I've also in that aspect, I've been blessed with communicative parents. I want to preface this by saying my parents are not like, these like culturally liberal Muslims. They're fairly conservative, right? But they're also like open-minded in the sense that they are progressive and they're willing to have these conversations about, you know, marriage, finding life partners, like what that entails. Um, it's definitely a combination of aligning your future goals with like, the goals of your family unit as a whole, where you see yourself, where your spouse sees themselves. Um, all these conversations should be had, and you end up finding someone who aligns with your overall values, as a Muslim, like, like how devout are you? Like, how do you want to practice, right? Like that sort of stuff definitely comes into factor, into my relationship as well. These are all things I've thought of like before I entered like relationships. It wasn't like you go into it like and then try to like mold your way, like mold this person into who you want them to be or who your parent you think your parents expect them to be. Like that's not how it should be. You should uh, define what you want, what you are looking for. Um, a lot of that comes with introspection. A lot and like a lot of the loneliness epidemic comes from the fact that these young men don't know what they really want in life, right? And because of that, they don't know like how are you gonna work on the social aspect of your life of, finding a life partner or like finding someone in the romantic department if you don't have values to align yourself with, right? Like you're just gonna find the first girl that says yes to you, right? And then it becomes a can of worms because you start doing that, your standards shift and vary over time, and then that influences your own like life philosophies, right? It's just becoming this negative feedback loop of, oh, like, I'm settling, oh, like maybe like I can't find what I'm looking for. Okay, I'll change my goals to like accommodate for like the next girl that says yes, right? That's not how it should be. You should have, you know, uh I'm personally like not the biggest fan of journaling. I just like to visualize, like like for me it starts with like how do I want to raise my kids? Like how do I culturally want to raise my kids? How will my parents navigate my own kids? Like how will they interact? And then you want to work backwards or reverse engineer like the traits you want out of your spouse. You might want X, Y, and Z quality. I may want A, B, and C quality, and that's okay. Then you start looking for these traits in a partner, not just, oh, like I'll figure it out when I'm 28. I have the job, I have the money. Oh, like I'll figure it out then. Because then you're at a point where, like you said, like you go through so much in life, you start carrying all that emotional baggage, the just like baggage that comes with life along the way. And then, you don't know how to treat that person when they come along, right?
Okay, and so yeah, so it basically goes back to um not leaving the foundations for so late in your life, and that's like a big problem in our communities, partly because of us and partly because of how we were raised. It never was this difficult. The barrier of entry has become obscene, and let's not be honest, it's not just financial, it's also unfortunately very very terribly is cultural as well. You want to be regardless of if they're good practicing Muslim or not, you want to be with your own community, and that makes sense when where we come from. But in a culturally diverse society like that we've been raised in, things need to be made. We need to. Our parents need to be understanding that things can change. And you're not gonna just always gonna be with somebody who's exactly like you. Obviously, it makes things easier, and it's always obviously communication is key in all of these scenarios. And so, just for the final segments of this podcast, I'd like to give my guests a platform to showcase any of their projects, anything that they're working on, because I understand a lot of people have hobbies, a lot of things that motivate them and make them unique. Uh, each and every person has something different. And you mentioned earlier in this podcast that you are working on a startup, and so one of the most difficult things, at least for people in computer science, is to get that first thing. Once that first thing is done, it's like a snowball effect. You get whatever you get rolling, and from then on, you've got the experience. You put that, slap it on your resume, and it's you know barbecue chicken from there, I guess. But so yeah, how did you like what is the startup about, if you don't mind
Gotcha.
speaking about
Yeah.
it? Yeah, and how did you get it? What advice would you give to other people about how to get these things, especially computer science students? It's a lot of doom and gloom that comes out of your guys' mouths, but I take a look a few months later and all of a sudden you've gotten some internships. So it's like, there's always light at the end of this tunnel. And appreciate, you being willing to talk about it. So, and what advice would you give to others in regards to this as well?
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate you giving me a platform to, share the stuff I've been working on. As a CS student, like a lot of it is just doom and gloom, right? Like, you're doing the standard interview practices of like grinding leak code every day, which I personally don't do. Um, I don't know if you know, but in the computer science world, like the news has been like leak code is kind of broken now. There's this guy at I don't know if you know this guy at Columbia
Oh,
who
some AI, right? They just
yeah,
solve it for
like
you? Okay,
yeah,
okay, I
he
heard
like
about it. Yeah.
essentially created an AI algorithm to like pretty much like solve all leak code problems, and then that is definitely gonna have ripple effects in the industry for sure when it comes to like technical interviews, which like I'm happy about. Um, but yeah, anyways, like it's not all doom and gloom. Like I personally um don't believe in like the spray and pray tactic of, just shooting your resume out to like a billion different companies and then like just fuck, like nothing's coming back. Like I'm a failure. It's over, right? Um, yeah, like I believe with enough faith in Allah, like you will find what is meant for you. Um, as for how I like landed this position at a startup, I was just scrolling through Reddit as one does, r slash startups. I was just scrolling, just seeing what ideas are out there, and then I see this person like inquiring about like, oh, like I have the startup, like they had this specific issue, right? It's like very niche issue, and I was like, hey, I think I can solve this exact problem that they're just like that they want solved because I've done it before at like my previous internship, right? So then, it was just a genuine like point of interest from my end. I just hit him up. I was like, hey, you have this problem. I've solved this before. Here are my credentials. Let's hop on a call. And then from there, like it was like it just became like, he wasn't even looking to hire, but he just had this question. He just happened to have posted this question on this subreddit that I just happened to know how to answer, and I was qualified to do so. And so I was able to land this position of full stack engineer at the startup, right? Now, what we do, um, so it's my startup is called Prexy. This is a startup that deals with centralizing like the booking system for service professionals. What's a service professional? Do you know what a service professional is?
Probably colloquially, but you're using big words, you know? I don't like these big words you're using. I prefer you dumb it down for me.
I got you, bro. No, not strippers, bro. Relax. Um, yeah, no. Uh, Service professionals are people that do like freelance gigs, like barbershops, salons, a tattoo artist, videographers, photographers, um, anything niche where you just like need to book someone out, like for a wedding, like you need someone for a wedding, or like very niche things that you might find on Fiverr, right?
Yeah, how convenient that we know a barber as well.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah,
true.
exactly.
True. And now segueing into that, like what do like a lot of these barbers use? They use there's like 100 different platforms where you could just book appointments, right? Like you have Calendly, obviously, Booksy, Square, like a lot of these booking platforms, but there's no centralized platform to keep track of your books, keep track of receipts, like all the official tax stuff that comes along with running a business, obviously. You know, there's a million different tools to handle like invoicing, to handle like customer support as well. Like they're not all done through like Booksy. You just book an appointment through Booksy for your haircut. You have an issue with the haircut. Who do you complain to? Like so a lot of these um, service professionals have a hard time juggling, especially if they're newer to the industry, of like 5 or 6 different apps to handle like, booking appointments, like sending follow-up like messages to like notify their customers, dealing with the legal aspect of their job, dealing with like the tax stuff as well. We're trying to combine all of those, and we're creating a two-sided marketplace to where service professionals can talk to each other, like barbers can communicate with other barbers on bettering their craft, um, working on certain aspects of their craft, like if, offering mentorship to one another. And then on the other aspect, you're a client, you need a haircut, you know, like how do you find a haircut? Like, how do you find a barbershop in New York City? You ask a friend, right? Like, hey, where'd you get your hair cut? Or you just Google like the closest place to you, right? We're essentially trying to be like the Uber of service professionals. It's a one-stop shop. It's a hub. You go on there. One day you're like, oh, I need a tattoo. I'm just gonna find a tattoo parlor that's like on the platform, like that is tailored for me specifically, right? Like, you might provide some images, for our software. Like you might want this type of tattoo, or like, you want it, you want it to like be in this proximity to you. Like stuff like this will be fed into our algorithm, and then it'll just give you something way better than just Google search, right? Same thing with haircuts. You want a certain type of haircut. You've gotten this hair type of haircut before and you want it done again. Boom, put it in there. It'll generate a list of barbers that fit your criteria. Or same thing with like wedding photos, or like, you have a certain kind of theme to your wedding, and you need to find like a photographer like that caters to that specific niche of photography. You don't want to do like hours of research on the internet, finding like Googling all that stuff, going like sifting through reviews, you know, contacting that freelancer privately. Like it's all centralized on our platform. That's what we're working on. Um, right now we're in the pre-seed stage, which just means we haven't launched our product yet. It is pre-revenue, so the pre-seed stage is just we're securing investments for just like, the ideation phase, and just like a minimal viable product. This is just like we're trying to show investors some prototypes of this stuff, just showing them a pitch, and then going like, hey, if you believe in us, show us the money, um, opposed to like, like round one investments where it's like, oh, you have proof of concept, you have some revenue done, and then investors ask for like a larger percentage. Right now, we're just looking for angel investors. These are investors who are more involved, care more deeply about the project itself, and are willing to give up like equity because they just believe in the mission. That's usually how these things go. We're in talks. We're close. Hopefully, if my fortune, inshallah, will change by the end of this month or next month, and I can take this full time. If not, that's okay. It was a great learning experience, like handling different aspects of business. Like I learned so much about business as well as way more than just being a code monkey, which is I feel like essentially what happens if you start like at like larger company, like they task you with like the most mundane of like software engineering tasks, like some bottom feeder like glitches or typos in the code that like people don't even see, right? So in that aspect, I'm glad to like being so like to like wearing so many different hats all at once. Business aspect, whether that be like perfecting pitch decks. I haven't really taken classes at Stern. It's just these are things like all these big boy jargon that I'm throwing out there. This is just stuff I'm learning from like working with the technical co-founder and like the CEO, right? These are all terms that I'm becoming familiar with, which I think is a lot more useful than like learning like the bullshit like econ formulas you learn in like a macro class like at Stern. Um, yes, I'm fortunate to be able to wear so many hats, like business hats, like the actual um ideation, like not just coding and stuff, but like defining like the features of the product and then building it like top down or like bottom up, whichever way. Um, dealing with like complex problems like, hey, how are we going to integrate like a backend of like this size? Or like, what if we want to include these features? How will the entire product change? Stuff like that. Like, these are very interesting problems to solve. You know, I don't know if we'll take off or if we'll crash, but like, regardless, I'm so glad that I'm in this experience, like doing so much all at once.
Yeah, and yeah, that was great, pitch of what you were doing and why it's benefited you so much and what you've learned from it. And just like the final thing I just wanted to highlight is that it's actually kind of interesting to me. I raised my eyebrow when you said you're not an advocate for shotgunning applications, which is like the standard that everyone does pretty much. Like an
Yeah.
engineering student, a comp sci student, any
Mm.
student applying to a bunch of places, they just shotgun application. That's all I've heard, at least from the circles that I'm in. Send
Yeah.
application after application. One is bound to hit in the law of probability. So, well,
How's that working out for your boy Arjun?
I mean, I don't know. I've not spoken to him, so other people will be more informed about his situation. But besides the other guys, they they get lucky, and I don't want to call it luck. Once you throw enough darts, I guess one is bound to hit the center. So, people get lucky, and I'd say that most of the time, individuals will credit shotgunning their applications to their success. And you, on the other hand, are contrary to that popular uh, strategy of getting a job. You said you just scrolled Reddit, so I just wanted to know, like, was that a last resort, or you just wanted to be different, see what would happen?
Um, A little bit more of the latter, right? Like, just wanted to be different, right? That's actually like a similar approach that I took to landing like my previous internship. I was interning under a Stern professor for her startup as well, which is kind of how I segued into this startup, right? Like it's like I was solving a similar type of problem, so I had that experience, right? And the way I landed that previous internship was also just through outreach. Like this person had a problem and I thought I could solve it. I presented myself a case and I basically just advocated for myself, which it's like I'm reverse interviewing, right? Like it's like I'm not like, showing my qualifications and then like, asking for an interview. Hopefully I'll get an interview and then I'll be able to pitch myself. I'm just pitching myself directly like, hey, you have this problem, I can solve it. And then they're like, oh, how can you solve it? Then I'm like reversing it by going like, okay, here are my credentials now that you've asked, right? Might sound a little salesy, might sound a little gimmicky, but I don't know. Like I feel like for me, like when I do shotgun applications, it just feels so demoralizing because it just feels like I'm throwing numbers on a screen. I'm just hitting the send button, filling out like a AI generated cover letter where I'm just like inflating my numbers, like I don't even know what I'm doing, and then getting hit with the auto rejection email like template. The like half the time that people from the company are like not even seeing me as a candidate, but rather like, hey, like this kid's numbers didn't like meet the ATS. Like we had better candidates because they had like 5% better efficiency like for like data parsing, right? At the end of the day you are a statistic on a HR screen. Like we've all seen that meme of like Anne Hathaway, like the recruiter from Florida State University, like reading your resume while you spent like 5 years working on a project just to be like nah, like your ass, right? Um, so like at the end of the day, if we are all just statistics and a pile of papers on a desk, I think like the best way to differentiate yourself is to just pitch yourself. I don't know. That's just what's worked for me so far. But like you said, it's different for different people. Like yeah, you could try shotgunning. I feel like that approach does work. In certain industries for sure. I just think for industries that are just way more like numbers oriented as well. Since everyone is shotgunning, I feel like maybe if you are approaching it from a different perspective, might be helpful, might also not be. Like at the end of the day, if you try what I'm doing, someone else might just see that as like, oh, like this guy's just like spamming my inbox. Like I'm not gonna respond. This dude's annoying. Could happen to you, but also you could, you know, um, what is that phrase? Like, luck is when like opportunity meets preparation or whatever. Like
Yeah.
you're displaying the preparation and then like you're creating the opportunity for yourself by like pitching. So, yeah, like you could get lucky that way. Like, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, so you're basically saying let's humanize the process, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
sure like I'm sure like you read a lot of these I mean you see a lot of these like, TikTok HR guys going like, yeah, like, send a personalized message to everyone you see on LinkedIn, like try to make connections that way. I don't know. Like I don't necessarily agree with that approach either. I'm just from the perspective of, oh, like I see something that genuinely interests me, like in terms of like a problem I can solve, and then I just approach it from like, hey, like screw like the company, like screw like what I want to gain out of this. Like they have a problem and I think I can just solve it straight up. That's just the approach I take.
Yeah, and honestly, that's a great mentality. I think that's a great way for a lot of people to feel like they have some block. It's not honestly, it's not your fault. Like for the most times, it's not your fault. You're just a statistic on a
Yeah.
computer screen, and it's so easy to disregard a statistic. So yeah, this is a wonderful piece of advice, and with that, I think is a great place to end. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. It's late at night now. We gotta wake up.
3 a.m. talks, man.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
gotta wake up soon as well for suhoor and all that stuff. But I appreciate you taking time out of your day. You gave a lot of wonderful advice, a lot of wonderful insight into your life, and I know a lot of people can relate to it and give a lot of uh seek a lot of benefit from it. And it was like wonderful just to reconnect as well. Once again, it's been a tough semester, and it's wonderful to have these conversations with a friend of mine. And with that, to the viewers, like, comment, and subscribe to this video. And to you, Ryan, I just like to say Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak.
Welcome Aslam, Ramadan Mubarak to you as well. And I hope we reconvene with better times.
Inshallah, right?
Inshallah. Of
And
course.
with that, like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.